references a study where they sent people out into a neighborhood and they took these big signs that said, drive carefully, and asked the homeowners, can we put this big sign in your front lawn? People didn't like that. Only 17% of the people agreed to have this big sign in their yard. But then they went to a similar neighborhood and they brought these little 3-inch cards that said, be a safe driver. And almost everybody agreed to put that in their window. The interesting part is they went back to those same people with the big sign and said, hey, you mind if we upgrade your sign to this big one and put it in your front yard? It says, drive carefully. 76% of the people said, yes, you may. It's an overwhelming success. See, if you want to get more impact in your speech, if you want to get people to respond to you, then what you want to do is you want to start with the easy thing and then move up to what you really want. And sometimes that's 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps. Sometimes it can take a lot of steps. But that's what I'm here to tell you about, is momentum and how to achieve it. If you want to gain momentum, the first thing that I've found to be effective at the bar mitzvahs and speaking is start out with something easy. Easy. If I ask a crowd of people in an audience and I say, who here has stress in your life? Just nod your head. Your head nod. A head nod is real easy. A hand raise is a little bit tougher, but still on the easy side. Getting people to stand up is a little bit tougher than that. Getting people to answer a tough question, that's the toughest one of them all. So what I'm saying here is that when you're building momentum, you want to start off with something easy. The second thing you want is to be absolutely crystal clear what you want people to do. Sometimes I see speakers get up and they ask a question to the audience, but they didn't let the audience know how to respond. Did you want them to raise a hand? Did you want them to just nod their head? Did you want them to think inside their head? That's up to you. If you wanted them to raise a hand, but you didn't say specifically to raise their hand, now they don't raise their hand, well, your speech just took a little hit there. It's not as good as it could have been. You see, people now identify that, oh, I guess I'm not a participator today. They think that in their head, and getting them to participate at any point during the rest of the speech is going to be even tougher. So make it easy, be crystal clear about what you want. The third one, I'm going to tell you guys a story when I was first emceeing bar mitzvahs. I'm going to call it Josh's bar mitzvah. I was out there, a brand new MC, and of course you know what my job is, and I couldn't get anybody out to the dance floor. I got some. I'd have a handful of people come out, and then they'd leave. I had a handful of people come out, and then they'd leave. And I thought, what is going on? Why am I having such trouble? And that is when I discovered something called the tipping point. The tipping point. If I got a room full of 100 people, varying ages, at a bar mitzvah, if I can get 70% of the people to the dance floor, I can get 90, 95. But if I can only get 50, they will come out for a minute and go right back to their seats. I'll have to start from square one. So the tipping point is the amount of crowd response that you can get that will ensure that everyone else will also participate. You see, when you get 70 people at one of my parties out, the other 30 feel like they're missing out on something. And they'll go out of their comfort zone to get there. And that's what the tipping point is. What is that number for you in whatever it is you're doing? If you're speaking, if I'm speaking to a Toastmasters crowd, and I want people responding to what I do, 60%. Toastmasters are easy. 60%. I get 60% of the people that raise their hand once. If it applies, they will raise their hand the rest of the speech. And that's how you get impact through momentum. The last thing that I'm going to leave you with before I wrap up is, how does this apply to getting whatever it is that you want? What is it that you want? Do you want a raise? Do you want a raise from your job? Do you want to close a sale? Do you want a date with that person who caught your eye? All of this applies. Momentum. If you want that raise, just march it to your boss's office and say, oh, I'd like that raise. I'd like 20% raise. That's it. No. You're going to start off easy. Nice small talk, some conversation. Start Start pointing out things in your career that have been going well. Get them agreeing with you. Get them doing the yes. And then as you go, when you get to the point to go ahead and ask for that raise, boom, you're there. Then if you wanted to close the sale, most people have heard about the yes ladder. It's the same thing, foot in the door technique. Just get people agreeing, saying yes to all the things, and try and stay above that tipping point. Stay at the point where you don't lose them. Stay where it's safe, where they're coming along. Because as they're coming along, you can ask more and more. And I asked you to raise your hand, that was easy enough, but then I asked you to get up and dance, and you did it. And then, of course, if you want the date with that special someone, you can walk right up and say, hey, come out with me to dinner. Let's go out. But that's a small percentage play. That's like putting the big sign in the grass. I've tried this before, Con Jackson will agree. That's putting the big sign in the grass. You want to ease into it. Use these concepts of momentum. You'll get that raise, close that sale, you get that person that sparks your eye, and you never have to spend a minute trying to MC a reluctant crowd at a bar mitzvah. L'chaim!
And along those lines, KimYung Kim is a professional rapper, comedian, and youth speaker. As a professional youth speaker, he has motivated more than 8 years young people, and he has learned a lot of lessons along the way. KimYung Kim is here to share with you some of the lessons he learned specifically about the business of speaking. Help me welcome, please, KimYung Kim.
Excellent, very good. All right, so I'm going to start my speech. Make it a little interactive. So she said that I rap, I do, and I'm going to perform for you guys. So I need a topic to rap about. Person, place, thing, idea. Anything will do. Let's keep it PG-13, and then we will be A-OK. So you can just shout out your answers.
Babies, high school prom.
Babies, high school prom. I don't know if I did that PG-13. Babies. Going once.
Balloon animals.
Balloon animals. I take your challenge. Oh! Balloon animals. All right. I'm rapping about balloon animals. You got me? Okay. Yeah, good.
I'm rapping about balloon animals.
All
I don't think
right.
I've ever heard that before.
Let's hit play.
I hear it now.
All right. Check. No. Thank you. I'm going to the place called the fair. It ain't really fair. Tie it in a square, tie it in a knot. I'm saying off the top, I got a bunch of things like a balloon animal, and I'm talking about giraffes, a whole lot of neck. Come through, run through, and yo, I get respect. If I could do a couple of those things, I could make a snake. Of course, it would look great, and no mistake. I'm just flowing off the top, and I'm knowing it's often hot, and I'm talking about the things like the dog making a poodle, and that's what I do. I come through, I got oodles of rhymes all the time, and I come out my mind. I got things that'll pop off the top, come through, run through a lot, spit it off the top. I got a lot of things made of rubber and filled up with helium or air. CO2 come out my lungs, and that's how I run. Spit a freestyle, yo, I do it for fun. And that's how I do with these rhymes that I drop. Spit freestyles, yo, straight off the top. I'm spitting on the flow, spitting with the flow. Getting so low, you can call me a snail. I can make that really good, but it would be really small. And that's what I do, yo, I constantly ball with my people all day. And that's how I go, and that's what I say in a freestyle flow. Yeah. Very good. All right, so my name is KimYung Kim, or I would like to call myself the artist formerly known as KimYung Kim. I decided I'm going to change my name. As a motivational speaker. I feel like I should have a name that's more motivational, more inspirational. So I decided to change my name from KimYung Kim to Martin Luther Kim. Tell people I got a dream, right? Yeah. That's all I got to do. All right, very cool. So today what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk to you guys about some of the mistakes I've made as a professional speaker, and hopefully you guys will not make the same mistakes as you hear what I have to say. So, no, okay, don't worry about it. We're cool. All right, so one of the things that I learned is do not be shy about asking for a video testimonial. Okay, that's one of the things that I've learned. Okay, I spoke at a school nearby. It's called St. Martin's Episcopal School. I spoke there a year ago. After I was done speaking, the woman who hired me, she was just raving on and on. Oh, this was fantastic, and this is the reason why. You weren't talking down to the kids, you were talking to the kids, and over and over and over. And I sat there and I listened to her. And I said, man, I wish I had my video camera set up. Right? And I got a video testimonial from her, but it wasn't the same energy. Not the same energy. And I was kicking myself, why didn't I set up my camera? So get a testimonial on the spot. Very, very important. Okay? The reason why video is important is you cannot fake a video testimonial. In writing, you can fake something, right? You can say, KimYung Kim is the greatest motivational speaker in the world, Barack Obama. Right? You need social proof to prove to these people that you got the chops to make their event awesome. So, get it while it's fresh, ask for a testimonial on the spot. Another thing, do not hire a cheap videographer. No offense, Shay. Don't hire a cheap one. We appreciate you. This is very important. I made my demo video, and if you watch my demo video on my website, you will see that I am in the same shirt, and it looks like I'm doing one speech, one time. But what ended up happening is I actually had to do the speech 3 times over. First time, they messed up the sound. Second time, they messed up the video. Third time, they finally got it right. And I had to pay them extra money. And I had these other guys that I was going to use. They were great, but they were a little too expensive. I said, hey, let me just save a little bit of money. But you know what they say. You get what you pay for, and I definitely got what I paid for. Right? So definitely spend the money on video. Now, if you want to get video, and let's say, for example, you don't have money, oftentimes what speakers will do is they will speak for free, and they will ask the people who are hosting them to videotape the speech. And then you have a free demo video. So that's a little trick that you can use, if you don't have money to do that. Third thing, do not be a jack of all trades. Okay? When I speak, every time I speak, I have a million things that I want to tell these kids, but they hired me for one speech. They hired me to do a job. That's what I'm there to do. Now, if you have extra things that you want to talk about, write a book, add some extra material, so on and so forth, but do not try to cram a bunch of stuff into one speech. One thing, one takeaway message. How many of you guys know who Les Brown is? Raise your hand.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Les Brown perfected the one speech method. He's got a couple of speeches, but he said off of one speech, he has made $60 million. Oh yeah. You've ever heard that phrase, riches in your niches? Well, you have now. There you go. That's great. Riches in your niches, find a niche that they are willing to pay for, and make your money. Okay. Next thing, do not be boring. I know that obviously that makes sense. But what I mean by that is you need to add humor in your speeches. Okay? I have actually taken comedy classes. And believe it or not, the comedians, they use these formulas. They have formulas that any one of us can learn. And if you learn the formulas, then you can create comedy. Now, there's the thing about comedy. Okay? Maybe you say, I'm not a naturally funny person. Well, this is what you're going to do. You're going to steal from other comedians. Not kidding. But you can use funny stories that you have heard, and as long as it gets people laughing, that's all that matters. Okay? So make sure that you keep people engaged. An important thing, like we have heard earlier today, audience participation. Now, I speak in big auditoriums, so I get people yelling. I would make them yell out at me.
I have them come up on stage. I do a lot of improv comedy with the kids. Kids love it, I don't know if adults do, but that's why I use it. Definitely, basically, it's a dialogue, right? It's not a monologue, it's a dialogue. Okay. Don't use jokes that have worked in the past just because they've worked in the past. Okay? Now, I tell you that story because it's important for us to know our audience, right? I was speaking in Mississippi, right? I had that same joke about Martin Luther King. That joke kills everywhere I go. I told that joke, crickets. They looked at me so sideways and I felt bad, they were offended. I meant nothing by it. I never used that joke in Mississippi ever again. Live and you learn. An important thing that I've learned is tailoring your speech to your audience. Now, one of the things that I do is I like to go and I like to meet with the counselor who's hiring me. I like to meet with actually the kids, or I like to get my eyeballs on them at least, so I can just kind of get a feel for who they are. A couple things that does. Number one, it helps you to understand your client, but it creates trust with your, the person who's hiring you. And also what it does is it goes a really long way. It really does. They appreciate it very much. Okay. Next thing, do not forget to practice. Do not forget to practice. When I give my speech, I look a lot better than maybe I actually am because of the fact that I've practiced so much my speech over and over again. I have given my speech many times, and every time that I speak, if I'm speaking, I try to get 1 minute for every hour that I'm speaking. Which means if I'm doing a 45-minute keynote, guess how many hours I'm practicing for? 45 minutes. Thank you for participating. 45 minutes, or 45 hours of practice. Okay, that's a lot, but that's what the pros do. Okay. Also, do not be afraid to promote yourself from the stage. I had all this self-promotion stuff. There was all the PowerPoint, and it's fine. I can do it verbally. We're good. Go ahead and get your pens out. You go right now. But don't be afraid to. Don't be afraid to promote yourself from the stage. You have to do it in a non-sleazy way, though. You definitely have to do it that way. So, for example, one of the things you can do is you can offer freebies. Hey, I got a free ebook for you. Just go to this website, put in your information, I'll give it to you. Or one of the things that you can do, let's say you are a speaker and you're also a life coach. What you can do is you can say, hey, just the other day I was with a client, oh, by the way, I life coach, and when I was with my client, we were talking about these different issues that they're working with, and all of a sudden, everyone in your audience knows that you're a life coach. And you did it in a way that was very covert and sneaky. Right? Okay. So that's basically it. That's all I have for you guys. I hope that you took away something. And I will be in the parking lot and in the men's room rapping if you guys want to. All right, pleasure.
In 2002, Richard Kirby chose to establish his own career coaching firm, helping professionals and executives achieve their career dreams. In keeping with our theme of take the next step in your speaking career, Richard will be challenging you to identify speaking goals that are of the most benefit to you. So please help me welcome our next speaker, Mr. Richard Kirby.
Thank you. So those of you really have not asked me tonight, so I feel I need to divulge this, even though I've shook hands and met several people or shaken hands with several people. I do have this abrasion on my forehead, and you may have noticed my eye is a little blackened. So they tell you in speakers training that when you have some unusual situation, you should just get that right out of the way. Otherwise, people sit in the audience the whole speech wondering what in the heck happened to them. So what happened to me was very simple. I ran into an immovable object with my face. And that ties right into my speech. As I was trying to figure out how am I going to get this thing started tonight, I realized that I had done something really wrong, and you pay for it, in that I wasn't paying attention to where I was going. So our theme is take the next step in your speaking career. So I'm here to ask you, what is that next step? Because if you're not careful, if you don't pay attention, you may take a step that's off track or backwards or sideways from where you really want to be. Since I'm a career coach, that was the plug right there, right, KimYung? I'm very interested in people taking the right kind of steps. So what I want to talk to you tonight, I have 3 key things I want to share with you and actually get your involvement in. The first thing is I want you to give me some feedback on what you want to get out of your next step. What would be motivating? What would be an accomplishment? What do you want to get? What are the goodies you want to get out of taking the next step? All right, before you figure out what the next step is, you kind of want to know what do you want to get out of that step. Second thing is I'm going to share a little bit about how speaking's tied in with my career. I think many of us don't expect to be a paid professional speaker and make millions of dollars doing that, but it needs to support whatever our goals are in our career or in our life. So I want to share some of my experiences and how speaking was involved with that. Might give you some ideas. And the third thing, I really want to come and ask you to write down in your book there, what is your current definition of what the next step is? Okay?
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, what I'd like to do is kind of like a speed round here. I'm going to write some of your ideas. Not what is the next step, but what do you want to get out of the next step? What would be motivating for you?
More money.
More money. Okay, I got money. What else?
Love what I'm doing.
Love what you're doing?
Make a difference.
Make a difference. What else?
Inspire people.
What was the third one?
Make a difference.
I'm a slow writer.
Improve my memory.
Make a difference. What was the next one?
Inspire people.
Inspire people. Great. What else?
Recognition.
Recognition. What else?
Fun.
Fun. That's always a good one. Anything else?
Challenge people.
Challenge people. Okay. Okay, sounds like we've got some of the top favorite things there. So you have, some of you have contributed, other of you may not have said anything, but you're looking at the list and you're going like, yeah, I'd like number 1, number 2, and number 4, whatever the Chinese menu method, whatever. So as you're thinking about what you want to get out of your next step, let me share with you how speaking has been involved kind of backdoor in my career, and see if any of these things make sense to you, or maybe you look and say, that's a great example of how not to do it, so I'm going to make sure and do it the opposite way of the way Richard did it. So I have an engineering degree. I started out in engineering, and as you know, you probably heard how engineers, or you know how engineers work, right? They tend to be kind of introverts. So there's an old joke that, how do you tell an introvert engineer from an extrovert engineer? When you're speaking to them, an introvert engineer looks at their shoes while they're addressing you. An extrovert engineer looks at your shoes. So in the future, that's how you know to tell an introvert versus an extrovert. I was doing well, I was making more money, and I was kind of, quote, climbing the engineering ladder. But in corporate America, I decided I didn't want to be trapped kind of in that zone of income and a professional area. I couldn't see myself in 30 years being an engineer. So I decided to make a radical career change after 7 years in engineering. And the best thing I could come up with was go to the head of the training center and say, I've been trained in engineering, I've done the job, I'm an expert in engineering. I don't want to do it anymore, but I could teach people. And because I was kind of even beyond the bounds of that extrovert engineer who looks at your shoes, I could actually look the guy in the face, and he believed I could get up in front of an audience and teach, do classroom teaching, then I'd kind of gone from engineering, where there really wasn't any speaking component. I'd sort of backed myself into a corner where I had to learn to become a classroom teacher or instructor. Of course, that is public speaking. 30 people in a room every week, and you've got to interact with them. You've got to try to draw them in and deliver the information that they need to be better in their careers. So I sort of backed into becoming a public speaker in that first career move. Second career move, mid in my career, I decided that I didn't really want to do the corporate training anymore, because I still saw that as career limiting and particularly income limiting. And the salespeople were making their own schedules and going out and playing golf with customers, taking them to lunch, making commissions. When I looked at their income and my income, I thought, I should get into sales. So I had a whole new, now, you see, I'm not really thinking what's the next step in my speaking career. I'm just thinking what's the next step in my business career. And then I get myself a little bit into trouble in that when I take that job on, now I have to look at what's required speaking-wise to be effective in that role. So when I went into sales, then I had to, more than just educate, I had to sort of motivate and influence and things like that in my professional presentations, not just the education of the classroom teaching. So in my case, so far in my career, up to that point, it had been the speaking kind of came along with what I was trying to accomplish in my career. Now, coming 12 years ago and starting into coaching, I still do educational speaking, so the things I learned in classroom teaching I can still use. I still have to get clients and attract clients in my speaking, so I have to do a little bit of that sales and marketing, but as was mentioned earlier by KimYung, needs to be more subtle. And I've written a book, and what I would project myself, my public speaking in the future at some point, what I would like it to be doing for me is getting people to go buy my book so I can sit at home and collect money without having to work. That's my next step in my speaking career, and it's probably a ways off, but I have an idea of what my goal is, and I can work toward achieving that. So I mentioned we're going to talk a little bit about what's your motivation, relate kind of how speaking has been involved in my career. And the last thing I have is I'm going to ask you to take out your pen and paper and write down what is the next step in your career. The next step in my career is, the next step in my speaking career is. Many of you don't want to be a professional speaker, but what could you do speaking-wise that would enhance, in many cases, your business career? I'm going to shut up and let y'all write for me. Okay, so how many people scribbled something down, even if it's semi-incoherent? I've got maybe about half of the audience. So I would challenge the rest of you to think about that as I'm wrapping up. What would be something you could do speaking-wise that would be a next step that would help you in your career? This was sort of paraphrased earlier, but I want to quote one of my favorite philosophers, Yogi Berra. And for those of you who are younger and don't know who Yogi Berra was, he was voted one of the players of the century in Major League Baseball at the end of the last century. And he was in, I believe, 19 World Series as a coach or a player. So he has great philosophical credentials, right? He has a 285 lifetime batting average. And he said, if you don't know where you're going, then you need to be very careful because you may not get there. So I hope that something that I've said has clicked with you and got you thinking about where are you going? What is the next step in your career? And I sincerely hope that all of you will attain it, whatever it is. Thank you.
Now we're going to take a short 15-minute break. You know where the food is on the back We have some books over here on this side. Mix and mingle, meet each other, meet the speakers. They love to hear from you.